Is Alex Pereira the greatest UFC signing of all time? Thank you guys for joining me. My name is Josh Betar. Before we get started on this video, if you could, can you please like and subscribe to the channel? We have a ton of these videos coming out over the next few weeks leading into Christmas, and will be more coming in the new year as well. So if you could do that for us, it does help us out a ton. So in today's video, we're going to be going over Alex Pereira's signing overall. Looking back, obviously, it's been 3 years now since his signing to the UFC. And we're going to be sort of dissecting and breaking down his signing and where that fits in with other notable signings that the UFC has acquired over the years, and if it really is the greatest signing in UFC history. I'm going to start this off by saying I think it is. I do think his signing is the greatest in UFC history, but we're going to look at some other big name acquisitions that the UFC has managed to pull in over the last 10, 15, 20 years. Um, Obviously, a big one about 5 or 6 years ago was Ben Askren. In terms of a name value, for hardcore fans like myself, it was definitely a big name signing. Just considering what he'd done in Bellator, especially the Douglas Lima fight, winning the title in one championship, fighting in a few different organizations. At the time, Ben Askren was, there was a possibility that had he beaten Jorge Masvidal, it would have been Ben Askren versus Kamaru Usman for the UFC welterweight title. I mean, we got pretty close to that as a realistic fight. Now, obviously, things didn't go to plan for Ben. Lost to Jorge viciously, and then the last fight against Damian Maia was none that you'd really be proud of. It was quite a terrible fight if you're asking a fan who saw that fight. Ben Askren was definitely a big one. There was a lot of guys in the early days with Pride, guys like Rampage. It's a shame, when Wanderlei Silva was a big one. Mark Hunt, a lot of these guys were big name signings back in the day. Not the biggest names in terms of obviously their accomplishments were big and everything like that. But I think as the sport's grown, you can definitely say there have been some bigger signings. But guys like Mark Hunt, Wanderlei Silva's Rampage, man, there was a ton back in the day that came over from Pride during that little acquisition period. A big one for my childhood growing up was Brock Lesnar. I, am still and always have been a big wrestling fan. And when Brock came to the UFC, that's sort of what piqued my interest in the UFC. As a young kid growing up, I started watching the UFC, and, when he beat Shane Carwin and Randy Couture and these guys and won the UFC heavyweight title, I think that has to be up there, at least top three of the biggest signings ever. Because when Brock left the WWE, he was like the champ, like, he just lost the title or whatever. He was a champion. He was only really in the WWE for about 2 years and became one of the biggest stars in the world, in sports and entertainment and those sort of things, and had a great amateur wrestling record at Minnesota, obviously a NCAA champion. So I think Brock is definitely up there as one of the biggest signings ever. You know, Coming in and I think he was 4-0 or 5-0 and won the UFC heavyweight title. Unheard of. Insane. Like, I mean, I know we're talking 15, 16 years ago where the sport has grown a lot, but still what Brock did then was extremely, extremely impressive.
G'day guys, Josh here From the Stands, and I'm just here to interrupt this video quickly to let you guys know about the sponsor of today's video, TrainAid, and their Black Friday sale starting on November 18th. All From the Stands viewers will receive a massive 25% off store-wide on all subs and apparel. Use the code FTSBF and take advantage of this amazing offer. Head to trainaid.com or click the link in the description of this video.
Say what you will about the fight with Mark Hunt and what happened with the steroids and that sort of stuff, but still one of the biggest signings the UFC has ever had. Another one, Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler coming over from Bellator in 2020, I think it was. Yeah, 2020. That was big because, as fans of the sport that watch different promotions, everyone had sort of seen what Chandler had done in Bellator, and the fight with Eddie Alvarez was a big one, especially. But fans were very excited to see Chandler in the UFC. And I think, in my mind, for what he's turned out to be for the company and the excitement he brings in fights, he has to be I think the second biggest signing the UFC's ever had. That may sound you may disagree, and you know, fair enough, you can do so. But I think Chandler, for what he's given the UFC in terms of these exciting fights, there is no one like Michael Chandler at lightweight that will fight like him. He will fight to the death, that man. So you got to give him all the respect in the world for how he fights, and he has a do or die attitude. Was so close to winning the UFC lightweight title against Charles Oliveira during their first encounter. You know, drop Charles, and if he zigged when he should have zagged, who knows what his title run would have looked like. Maybe he still would have lost to Islam. Who knows? But Chandler has to be recognized as definitely one of the biggest signings in the UFC's history for what he's turned out to be. Maybe not when he was initially signed. Everyone was, there was some hype and excitement and those sort of things, but how he's turned out to be, he was definitely one of the biggest names. He's definitely one of the biggest names in lightweight right now for sure. And he has that stigma. If any time a Michael Chandler fight is on, you're going to be tuning in. So that's always a big one as well. um, Ronda Rousey coming over from Strikeforce for what she did for women's MMA has to be recognized as well. Obviously didn't finish her career in MMA like the competitiveness in her would have wanted to, but nonetheless, a pioneer in women's MMA. And, I think a lot of women started their MMA careers and their journeys because of Ronda Rousey. And if not for Ronda Rousey, then who knows, what fighters may not have ever entered the sport. She was a big name. Um, she was the Mike Tyson of MMA, where you tune in to see how long these fights would last. I remember coming home one day and trying to race home to get to watch her fight. I think it was, I can't remember. It might have been Katzengano, and what she did in that fight. She was winning fights so quickly, and definitely a big name signing for women's MMA. I know a lot of people don't give her the credit she should get, but I think the sport just evolved around her, and I don't think she caught up quick enough. But definitely one of the biggest signings. A big one for women's MMA. I wouldn't say the biggest. She wouldn't sit in my top three, but she's definitely a big one. That really helped grow and improve the sport of women's MMA. Another one was my last one actually will be Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva was a huge one coming over from Japan. He had all these big fights. To see what he's done as what he did rather as the middleweight champion for so many years, and really is still considered, and in my opinion, the greatest middleweight of all time. The fights he had, and you can say Israel Adesanya is the greatest middleweight ever, but if you look at the longevity Anderson had, where he went 6 or 7 years without losing a fight, the fights with Chael Sonnen, these instant classics. And yeah, I think some people may disagree with that sentiment. I think I know he popped later for substances, but I mean, he really was the greatest ever. It was like an insane period of time watching Anderson fight. So I think you have to give credit where credit is due. But that leads me to the last point, that Alex Pereira is without a doubt the biggest signing in the UFC's history. If you look at what this guy's done in 3 years, um, the amount of cards he saved, the fighters he's fought, the former champions he's beat, uh, and the star he's become since signing with the UFC. I remember looking up Alex Pereira's Instagram when just after he signed, maybe he won that first fight with the flying knee, and I think he had like 100, maybe 50, 100,000 Instagram followers. He's at like 5 or 6 million. He's one of the most followed UFC fighters on Instagram, on social media. Like, he's massive. What he's done is insanely impressive. Only ever lost the one fight inside the UFC to Israel in the second fight, but I mean, you look at the fights, the guys he's beaten: Sean Strickland, former champion; Israel Adesanya, former champion; Jan Blachowicz, former champion; Yuri Prochazka, former champion; Jamal Hill, former champion; Yuri again, former champion. I mean, the fights he's had is truly incredible. It really, really is incredible. and needs to be recognized. I mean, this dude. I mean, and look at what 2025 could hold for him. You got Magomed Ankalaev there. He beats Magomed. I mean, we're really in. I mean, we're in a no man's land when it comes to contenders because who are you going to put Pereira against next? It's getting to a point where he's going to have to move up to heavyweight to get some more challenges and maybe we see the Jones fight. Maybe we see Pereira Aspinall. Who knows? But if he was to go to heavyweight and win the heavyweight title, I think he has to leap over John Jones. I mean, there's never been a three-weight world champion. He becomes the greatest of all time instantly. I think purely based on that. You become a three-weight world champion, that's it. You seal the deal. But he is a little bit older in the tooth. He's probably only got 3-4 years, if you're lucky, if you can squeeze him for that long. Realistically, two and a bit. He's 37. You know, it, it, it's uh it'll be interesting to see how long he does stick around in the UFC for. But you know, the amount of fights he's had in such a short amount of time. November 6th, 2021 has his first fight at UFC 268, and has since had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 fights inside 3 years, which is pretty impressive for a guy coming from kickboxing. Obviously developing a lot on the ground, and his grappling has improved a ton. So he has to be the greatest signing in UFC history. Let me know who your greatest signing in UFC history is. I'd be interested to know. If you have one, let us know in the comments below. But again, guys, thank you for all the support with these videos lately. We have a lot more coming out, and if you could like and subscribe, it does help us out a ton. Until the next one, guys, thank you so much for watching, and until the next one, I'll see you soon.